All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Joey Sanchez, Senior Director of Ecosystems here at the ION. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Pumps and Pipes 2023. This is an exciting day. We have panels, discussions, topics, breakout sessions, networking, all for one thing, for you. You are the reason why we're here today. How many of you grabbed a sticker on your way in? Excellent. And how many of you are from the energy industry? Raise your hand. Excellent. Look around, look around. Perfect. How many are you from the medical field? Perfect. And how many are you from the aerospace industry? How many of you are just excited to be here? There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Because this is Houston. This is uniquely Houston. And today you have the chance to be present in Houston with the three major industries, the tripod of industries of our city, but it really is the tripod of industries of our world, right? This is what is propelling our future together forward, is energy, medical, aerospace, and really it is you in the room that is gonna make it happen. So thank you so much for being here today. We are excited to have you in the ION. ION is a 300,000 square foot facility. If you look up, that's 5 floors of innovation. It was created by Rice University to create an innovation hub in the center of the city. So what a great place to have Pumps and Pipes in 2023, none other than ION Houston. Did anybody come last year? Raise your hand. Anybody? Yep, excellent. The MC was Penn Jillette, the world-renowned magician. This year, they got me. But think of the magic we can make here today through the connection, through the networking that we can do, because I guarantee you, you will meet somebody today that will change your life. I promise you. But it is up to you to find them. It is up to you to be present. It is up to you to make that magic happen. So thank you so much for being here today. Please be cognizant of noise traveling and to our speakers, so be aware of your side conversations. And more, than that, just be present. We're in the holiday season. We want to be present. Enjoy this time. Yes, very zen. I like that. But we really want you to be present, to learn something new, to meet a new connection, and let us know after today. Because today we'll wrap at 3:30 and we'll end at a happy hour. And if you meet someone new, I want you to offer to get together with them at the second draft here in the corner. So let's get this party started, guys. We have to, first of all, thank some of our sponsors. Today, we are very glad to have our platinum sponsor, Paige, gold sponsor, Greater Houston Partnership, our lunch sponsor, which will be here, Houston Methodist Center of Innovation, our breakfast sponsor, thank you so much, from Houston Airports, our happy hour sponsor, thank them very much, for Rice and Rich, our media partner, Innovation Map, and of course, the ION. Guys, today is gonna be a fun-filled day. Let's really keep the attention, the purpose of today, which is connection, and that is the purpose of the ION, is to connect one another. That's what Pumps and Pipes is here. Dr. Alan Lumsden, who's coming up to the stage, will talk to you about how that connection started on an airplane between a drilling engineer and a cardiovascular surgeon. And think about that. We don't have to have an airplane to do that. We can do that here today. But now let's welcome up our first speaker, Dr. Alan Lumsden, co-founder of Pumps and Pipes, chair of the Cardiovascular Surgery and Director of the DeBakey Heart Vascular Center at Houston Methodist. Dr. Alan Lumsden, guys, let's give him a round of applause.
Okay, Joey, thank you very much. It's really nice of you guys to build a building for Pumps and Pipes, because this is the concept, really, of bringing the big industries together in Houston. So this is where we started. We've been doing this for a few years with a little bit of introduction or interruption, basically, along the way because of COVID. But we started off down at University of Houston. And I loved that logo. At that time, we really didn't have aerospace involved in it. But as it moved forward, it was clear that we were missing out a big chunk of the business in Houston, and that was aerospace. And so we changed the logo. Still love this logo, with the heart made out of a pipeline, with an EKG in the background, and a rocket ship blowing right through the middle. So I often get the question, how do we come up with this idea? So I apologize for those of you who are Pumps and Pipes diehards, because I often tell this story, because it's very illustrative. The guy in the top left is a vascular surgeon called Laser Greenfield. Laser Greenfield worked at the University of Michigan. And he was having dinner with his next door neighbor. We think alcohol was involved in this. Being a Scottish guy, usually alcohol is involved in great innovation and frees up the mind. And over dinner, his next door neighbor, Garmin Kimmel, said, "So how was your day, Laser?" And Laser said, "Well, my day really was kind of bad." He said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, this young man came in a motor vehicle accident 3 days ago. We operated on him. We fixed all these injuries. But today, yesterday, he dropped dead from a blood clot." And Kimmel said, "So how does that happen?" He said, "Well, there's 2 tubes in your leg, one big tube that comes up through your heart and out of your heart. And he formed a blood clot in his legs that came up through his heart and blocked the outflow from his right ventricle. That's called a pulmonary embolism, and he died." And Kimmel was an engineer, had his own oil services company, and he said, "So there's one pipe comes out of the legs." They said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, put a filter in it." I said, "Well, nobody's ever put a filter in a blood vessel." I said, "Well, that's what we do in pipeline business." And so Laser Greenfield said, "You mean like a sieve?" And he said, "No, you can't put a sieve in a pipeline. You block a whole pipeline off. You got to exploit laminar flow. Highest velocity flow is center line. You need a conical shaped filter. The same fluid hemodynamics basically affect blood flow as flows in oil." And so they came up with this idea of putting this filter, and you can see what that filter looks like there. But they got together with another guy, and the guy basically who was the part of this triumvirate, what this building really is all about, was John Abele. John Abele was the founder of Boston Scientific, probably the second or third largest medical device company in the world. All of these medical device companies began in somebody's garage. And he said, great invention is always a metaphor. Basically what you do is you look at the problem, and then you try to connect it with other areas which may have nothing to do with the problem you're working on and see whether it's scalable. And that's really what we're trying to do in this concept really of pumps and pipes. And so I still love this title. It's called The Answer to My Problem May Well Be in Somebody Else's Toolkit. And although as cardiologists and cardiovascular surgeons are a little different, my co-partner Bill Zogby, from the chairman of cardiology here, he thinks we're a lot different, but we're really not that different. We're all trained in exactly the same way. We differ in the 2 to 3% basically of the way that we specialize. But you in the oil and gas business, when you're drilling or whether you're launching a rocket, have similar concept, imaging and navigation and trajectories, very similar topics to which we deal with in the cath lab on a daily basis. And so pumps and pipes kind of evolved. These are the different themes. And the co-founders were Steve Igos here in the audience. Steve, put your hand up so everybody knows where you are. And Bill Klein basically is from oil and gas. So Bill, got involved in this because I was sitting in a airplane seat. I'd been upgraded to business class. Kind of the doctor's occasionally up there. And next to me is always somebody from the oil and gas business flying out of Houston. And of course, we are always working on our PowerPoint presentations basically at the last minute, and you try to hide the bloody stuff that we've got on our computer. And the guy next to me said, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Move the computer so you can't see." He said, "No, I'm really interested in what you're doing." And he said, "Well, I'm a vascular surgeon. I join blood vessels together." And he goes, "Well, I'm a pipeline. I'm a driller. We just completed the longest offshore well off Sakhalin Island," and he worked for ExxonMobil. And so we got talking to this, and he said, "So how do you make sure it doesn't leak?" And I said, "Well, we punch in a few stitches, we take the clamps off, it sprays blood up, we put a few more stitches." Oh my gosh, you thought that was just barbaric, that the EPA would have him, behind bars for something like that, because you got to be able to pressure test it, you got to be 99.99 whatever percent sure the oil's not going to be leaking on the ocean floor. And so he introduced me to Bill. Bill was running ExxonMobil upstream research, was over in Buffalo Speedway. I may not quite the numbers right, but I remember it was shocking the amount of money under his control, like $1 billion a year research budget and 900 PhDs. That's like the NIH, for Pete's sake. So he's a guy that I needed to get to know, and that's how we basically evolved this. And there's been multiple different sentinel events that have occurred over the year. We've kind of gone through this, who's here. So give you a few analogies. What does a driller do, okay? And what do I do? You use imaging. You use ultrasound. We tend to use x-rays. You navigate a hollow tube to a target, maybe a catheter to put in a stent in a blood vessel, or it may be to access basic formation, and you deliver volume flow from point A to point B. Bill had the audacity to tell me one year that he was in the flow assurance business. No, you're not. You don't even know what flow assurance is. But when you think about these, it's very similar things. So I get irradiated morning, noon, and night to move a catheter from a groin 3 feet into your coronary arteries, for example. He's basically moving hollow tubes with no x-rays, 10,000 feet underground, 2 miles basically offshore. I think there's something that we can learn basically from that. And so when there's not enough flow, they can put pumps down there. We can do the same thing with your heart. We can even take your heart out and put a new heart in basically if need be. And so there's lots of different concepts. So how do you manage a multilateral well, look what's going on in different components of it? Now we have a thing called heart flow, which is a CAT scan. It's taken basically of your heart, looks at your coronary arteries, and use computational fluid dynamics to determine, without coronary artery catheterization, what is a significant lesion. It's exactly the same concepts that we're dealing with. This has been presented basically in Norway. We got this award basically from the UK Business Council. And so the influence of this basically has been fairly dramatic. And we started Norwegian Pumps and Pipes and went over there. I needed to go back and announce this for Stuart, is that hopefully next year we're going to run Pumps and Pipes in Aberdeen in Scotland. Aberdeen is not the most scenic place, but it's the centre of oil and gas in Scotland. Suffice to say, having lived in Scotland for most of my formative years, I've been in Aberdeen once. So you're not going to go there basically for the scenery, but for the engagement. STEM education is what we took on. This is what Bill and Steve basically are really reaching out. And I think this is a huge component of this. So for example, the Chemi Core Challenge, they had to build a battery out of iodine. The students had to have this run for how many feet, Bill? 40 feet? 40 feet, and stop right on that line. So you had to do all the chemical equations. He created the Trebuchet Challenge, by which they were going to have to take all the different components to build a catapult and launch it a certain amount of distance. I'm not even sure basically what it was. And so it's about, this is a platform to say, what do the kids in Houston need to learn to be effective and successful in your businesses? And I think beyond this discussion today, I think there's all sorts of things where we can influence that. We broadcast to the Middle East. There's a DeBakey High School in Middle East. This was broadcasting live heart surgery out of the operating room. Again, one of the things we call was docks and rocks. The reason your aortic valve gets narrow is because it's calcified. Oil and gas is in the calcification business. And how we cut that out, how we get rid of it, basically how we put a new valve in there, and how that is maintained without metal fatigue and fractures, you guys are the experts. As part of those Lunch and Learn series that was created, this was linking in the HISD schools at lunchtime into the Jet Propulsion Lab in California. How cool is that, to look basically in their sandbox? And a couple of years ago, we looked at using ExxonMobil satellites to look at vegetation, to look at mosquito habitats. And this was Elizabeth Nolan, I think his name, Melissa Nolan, basically from Baylor, who presented that. Fascinating. The dog's nose was presented as a chemoreceptor. Think of it as building a receptor, and how this is now used for when there are oil spills. It can detect subsurface oil. It can be used looking for mosquito habitats in your backyard to try and eradicate it. And there's been some just truly iconic pictures. This is down basically at the tank at NASA, where deep sea divers in the oil and gas business are training using the same protocols as NASA. Luca Parmitano is the guy who almost drowned in space. Why? Because these spacesuits have a heart and a vascular system. There's a pump and there are blood vessels to warm you up or to cool you down. And when it breaks and it leaks inside your spacesuit and you're outside the space station, you got a problem. And that was one of the more fascinating things, is to watch his heart rate and respiration rate as he almost drowned outside the space station. And he came to Methodist. This is his spacesuit that we're doing the imaging of, trying to figure out, what happened. It's because it was infected, because it had biofilms that blocked the tubes. So that was really almost broke the internet. We have a big innovation initiative on robotics at Methodist. We'd really like to get people from oil and gas, rice, and med to be involved in this, because this is, we think, is going to be playing a hugely important role in what we do essentially going forward. Now I'm going to finish off with this, is that Elon Musk has changed the world. And so this is what Tesla sees driving down the road, okay? It's a series of numbers. It's got a series of sensors saying, if you look at those numbers changing, tire spray. It looks at fog. It's calculating braking distances. And by the way, it's also filming you. And so they have this huge inventory of how you responded, good, bad, and different, under different circumstances. Can that apply to us? And so we now have cameras in our operating rooms. If you look at, these are tracking as we move through it. And this is something you can hear about basically back in our innovation center back here. And this automatically calculates and lets me know when the patient's in the room and the patient's draped. And so computer vision is being applied now in our ICUs. and applied basically in our operating rooms. And so this ability to use AI to do predictive algorithms based upon what was simply a video camera in the past is something that's been introduced to medicine really through the oil and gas, not oil and gas business, through the car business. So they've been playing this video, you know, in the background. So I'm not going to actually go through and do this. But if you look out of my office, it looks over onto Rice. And I always say two things happened in Rice Stadium. Super Bowl VIII was there, and that's really where JFK gave that moonshot speech. And he said, why do we go to the moon? Not because it's easy, because it's hard. And his handwritten in his own script was, you know, the question is, why does Rice play the University of Texas? So, all right, I guess we're going to play this. So crank this up, because you need it loud and proud, because this is going to motivate you about the uniqueness of your city, the uniqueness of what's going on in this Ion district. And this is an exercise in communication today, by the way. Okay, we all speak different languages. And so we always just say, show a picture, tell a story. And when you interact, if you don't know what the other guy's telling you, say, I have no idea what you're telling me. Boil it down into concepts, because if you don't connect, it's easy to look and say, we are connecting, and you look at it in a different dimension and you're completely missed. This is the opportunity. Probably not going to be in a gathering like this again, you know, and then until this time next year. And so run this, it'll motivate you, and please reach out to people and try to make these connections today. Thank you very much for your attendance, and look forward to an exciting day. So why don't you go ahead and run it.
And this city, and this state, and this region will share greatly in this growth. What was once the furthest outpost on the old frontier of the West will be the furthest outpost on the new frontier of science and space. Not this city of Houston, this state of Texas, this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them. On this new sea, because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used for the progress of all people.